Dad, I think after the last podcast with we got pretty heavy with the paradigm shifts, and we we shift
Forgiveness.
we shifted into not
Yep.
doing any podcast for a few weeks. And also jumping into this, we've spent a little bit of time on solving the tech issues, and we haven't really had a chance to catch up. So this is really raw, authentic again. How are you, Dad? Before we get
I'm
into
pretty
it,
good. I'm pretty good, mate. It's been a while. You've been on a bit of a journey yourself, haven't you?
I have. That's probably more than we can discuss in this podcast.
Just absolutely, and I think it's going to come down a in another one. But let's just say that you were at the in the Amazon.
I was in deep in the Amazon having a uh, spiritual experience, let's say, which was very, very profound and very intense. And perhaps we'll talk about that in another
Oh, we
podcast,
go
and we
definitely
can
going to.
we can go down that path. We have so much to talk about always, but I know there's a subject very, very dear to your heart that is you've been inspired by recent events. What happened?
Yeah, I've been toying around with all sorts of different topics to go down for our podcast. But a couple of weeks ago, there was a fiasco of the debate between Trump and Biden, which prompted me to think about authoritarian lies. And you might say, well, what's the connection between that and authoritarian lies? Well, back in 2020, it was very clear to many in inverted commas, the conspiracy world, that Joe Biden was not mentally fit to to even be nominated, let alone stand, let alone become the president of the United States. So the uh, thing that got me moving down this for this podcast is going to be called Authoritarian Lies, was linked also back to our podcast on paradigm shifts, the Gutenberg press, linking, as I said, to then the modern day equivalent of is the internet, and that the internet has been able to, in the last, which I've been down the rabbit hole for so long, been able to uh, show so many people around the world that we've been lied to,
Mm.
and for a very, very long time, for millennia, in fact. So yeah, so it's about authoritarian lies, and if we have time, we might go down to some unknowns as well. But I know there's a time limit on this one, but let's get into it. So that's why I want to do it. Is just like
Get into it. Let's
get into it. Okay,
what have we been lied to about,
so
apart from Joe Biden's mental acuity, which is yeah,
I'm going to read it. I'm just going to read something, right,
go
before
ahead.
I get into it. And I'm going to go back to the 12th century BC
Quite far
after this.
back.
Yes, I'm just going to read something. Nothing can now be believed which is seen in a newspaper. Truth itself becomes suspicious by being put into that polluted vehicle. The real extent of this state of misinformation is known only to those who are in situations to confront facts within their knowledge with the lies of the day. I really look with commiseration over the great body of my fellow citizens who, reading newspapers, live and die in the belief that they have known something of what has been passing in the world. Thomas Jefferson in the 18th century, saying it then. Then, of course, the quotes that we went through with Edward Bernays. So let me go to Ramses II, otherwise known as Ramses the Great.
Yeah,
Uh,
poor Ramses the first. We just got smashed
I
into
don't know. I didn't actually find out about what Ramses the First did.
it's
He might have been
because
Ramsay the Poor.
it was Ramsey the average. I think when you proclaim yourself as the great, like it doesn't matter which other Ramses there are, like you're the great. So
Well,
tell
he's more
me,
than great. He was deemed to be a god, and people looked up to him as being a god. He was a god, or linked with the gods. But anyway, he wanted to expand Egypt and went into invade the Hittite kingdom or the empire at the time, which is modern day Turkey, and he was trapped into a battle, and that battle, he had nearly lost his whole army, which then eventuated in a thing called the Treaty of Kadesh, which is the city that he was trying to invade. That basically stopped his ambitions of expanding the Egyptian empire. But he comes back, and because he's a god, he's infallible. So he can't tell his people that he failed. So he goes about putting on all the on the walls and that he won. So all these people, and the Egyptian people, said, "Oh, what a great man he is! He's a god. He won the battle."
And how would they know, right? It's pretty far away. It's not like they
They
had
didn't
any.
know. That's what he worked on. He
Yeah.
worked on the basis, and obviously, all his fellow leaders knew that, but anyone that would speak up otherwise were
So
killed.
Ramses, he's gone. His goal is to like conquer this town or village or city, whatever it was. He hasn't done it, and then he's like, "Shit! Like I'm calling myself Ramses the Great. I've got to. I can't come back as a loser." So he just clicks and goes, "Hey, I just tell them I won. Like, they're not going to know.
I not only tell him I won, I put on the walls of the temples depictions of the fact that he won. I'm the
Well,
champion.
fake it till you make it."
Well, he did it very well. So that's Ramses. It's
Okay,
just like, so he's lied, authoritarian lie,
he's like
supported by yeah, go on.
is he like the original political liar, or like at least one of the? Why did you choose to start with him? Like, is that a? It-
Oh, it just came up when I was looking through some stuff, and I thought, oh, well, that's a pretty good way back then. But then the other one is the priestly class, in cahoots with the gods of the day or what have you. Obviously, over the millennia, they knew about eclipses of the
Mm.
moon and the sun. So, so here's the priestly class working with, that know about all this, working with the leaders who are deemed to be, the gods, and they can do all sorts of things. So the priestly class are, well, tomorrow
The sun will
the,
disappear.
the boss here is going to come out and decree that there's going to be the sun's going to disappear, and the people go, "Oh my God, look at this!
Mm.
He is a god. He knows exactly what's going on." So
And that's
pretty good
interesting.
lie, that one.
What I find interesting about that is it stems from knowledge, a gap in knowledge of what's actually going on, how the world works, and they can exploit the ignorance of people because they know more and they know how to use that, and they know that these people either aren't able to access that knowledge or wouldn't believe it or don't know. So that provides this opportunity for them to go, actually, like same as Ramses, they go, hey, that would be pretty useful. We could convince them we're a god.
Absolutely, which has and then the stuff that I'm going through is only material which is sort of more in the Western world. Which is available to us. We shouldn't assume that this hasn't taken place in China, in Africa,
Mm.
in India. It's happened throughout the millennia and across the world. This sort of line, I have obviously. Haven't had time to go through that. So I'm just focusing on Western world, so to speak. But what you just said supports what I was saying about how the Gutenberg press was made information available to the masses to then start questioning the upper echelons, and what the internet has done today to disseminate a whole heap of factual information based on evidence, which I'm going to go through. And sort of say, well, in those days, that's what the belief system was, because the leaders and whatever, the controllers, were able to do it. A today with Biden, the internet has been through all of this. Oh, he doesn't know what he's bloody, going on about. Can't talk, can't walk, doesn't know where he is, doesn't know who he's talking to, etc. We wouldn't have known that if the internet wasn't available and all these alternative medias were covering it. And every day I've seen for like something comes up. So that's just supporting what you were saying.
Well, I think maybe at the beginning we had to rely on the internet to expose some of the gaffes. I think now it's more like I imagine them trying to hide it, just going like this has to be the most difficult PR job in the world to convince people that at
It,
the moment he's a and
it's
this is
gone now.
but let's for people listening, whatever your political stance, just for someone who's meant to be leading, and this isn't saying Trump, like let's choose Trump or whatever. It's just saying if this is supposedly the most powerful country in the world and representing strength, and this guy is in control, I don't understand how people can look at him and be like, yeah, he's the guy. Like in a country of, I don't know how many, 250 million
300,
or
350 million people, and they still come up with it. And it's Trump and Biden are the
like that.
two best. I mean, seriously?
I think that's it. It's just getting to this point where the veil has fallen over time, where at least before they used to have to maybe try, or it was a bit more deniable. And I think now people are just like, okay, like I think anyone who's really defending and saying no, he's right, is you got to surely there's a bit of delusion there. But anyhow, okay, so we're exploiting ignorance. I say we're like it's a tactic, but authoritarian lies is about exploiting ignorance. What's another one?
For purposes,
For
yes.
strategic gain, power, typically.
Yeah, and just yeah. So the next one is Columbus did not discover America.
Ooh, hot take. Who did? Or I
The
mean, it was
Vikings.
the Vikings.
The Vikings. The Vikings discovered America, and
But they didn't
they
stay.
shared they shared their knowledge with the Arabs over time. They shared it with the Templars, and I'm just reading here. Templar families had survived in Portugal, including Columbus's wife, which is where Columbus got his maps.
Mm.
And Columbus ships had the cross of the Templars on the sails.
Okay, so
Yeah.
let's explain that a bit more to me and to those not as far. So the Knights of Templar are what?
Oh,
The bullet point version.
they
Is it
they
a
they, they
sect?
arose. Well, they arose as protectors in the Crusades of the Christians, and they got a lot of money for their protections. I don't know that much about them, but um,
And they made maps.
yeah, they. Pardon?
And they
Well,
discuss.
they had been able to obtain the maps that the Vikings and the had put together, and just kept them a secret society.
Why did Columbus think he was in India? I mean, isn't that why
I
they
don't know.
didn't they call them the Indians? Is that I don't have much knowledge of that.
Neither do
Um,
I, mate. It's, it's just something that I came across, and I thought I did a bit more research and said, yeah, and it's people have um, over time have sort of said, no, it wasn't Columbus, no, it was the Vikings. And they came into northern Greenland, and then northern Canada,
mm,
and then into northern northeastern America. Yeah.
but they didn't settle.
Oh God, no,
They just
no. I don't
did a
know. I don't know why they didn't
bit of
settle. No.
pillaging and raping and went on their
Oh,
merry
they're
way.
very good at that. Yeah.
So,
Okay, the next one is the sinking of the USS Maine. In so the Maine was an American warship, and it was in a harbor in Havana,
what
and
time are we
it
talking?
oh sorry February 1898,
1898. Okay, so
1898,
some
and
time
it
ago.
sank, exploded and sank. President McKinley told the people via the Hearst newspapers that it had been sunk by a Spanish mine, when in
Mm.
fact, and he used that, saying it was an unprovoked attack and it supported his decision to go into the Spanish-American War. The fact is that the captain had insisted the ship was sunk by a coal bin explosion.
What explosion? Colbian.
coal bin, so it's coal-fired
Oh, right.
power ship. Yeah. So, but I'm just saying that uh, the storyline has always been the Spanish sank, or sank the Maine. And there's that expression, "Remember the Maine," but it was used by the president, and he knew what had actually taken place to support his decision to go into the Spanish War. I don't know much about the Spanish War. I haven't done any research on that, but that was pretty much well known.
So what we're seeing really is examples of event happening, and then the narrative around that event being managed in order for the people to attain, maintain, further their strategic objectives. And
Correct.
a
That's
core,
a common theme in this.
and a core part of that is uh, the ignorance of the people to the truth. But, and then as I'm sure we'll continue chronologically, we can see that even with information, sometimes that's not enough to change those narratives. So I'm just bullet pointing these to go. So far, we have proven examples of people in power manipulating events, whether they happened already, and that's an opportunistic thing. And that's maybe later we'll work out how this tactical approach got more sophisticated. So the Maine has been sunk by the Spanish, the dastardly Spanish, with their
Yes.
mine, which they've left there and driven into,
And the
sailed into.
president said, "Oh yeah, well, those bloody bad Spains, we're going to go to war, or supports them going against the war." Yeah.
We've got to go to
But
war.
then, well, the next one's about going to war, which is the sinking of the Lusitania.
That one sounds more familiar, the Lusitania.
Yeah, I'm trying to go in some chronological order here. Yeah, and this is
Yeah.
in 1915. A German U-boat torpedoed and sank the Lusitania. It was a passenger ship
Oh,
operated by the Cunard Line.
that's why I remember that.
And
High school history.
yeah, but so there'd been a war declared between Germany and the United Kingdom at the time, and United States was an ally, but it hadn't declared it being the United States hadn't declared war officially against joining the Brits against Germany. The Germans had knowledge that the Lusitania was in fact loaded also with military equipment, bombs, etc. War munitions, they called it, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the Germans actually published in newspapers warning passengers not to board the, I've got the actual notice here, warning the passengers not to board because they knew that there were munitions on board, and that if the ship went into territory where they had U-boats patrolling, that it would be sunk. And I think even I did read somewhere where that they even had some of the Germans had people sit on the dock as the passengers were going on, giving them leaflets. So don't board. We're warning you if there are munitions on board. Anyway, it was sunk, and the I can't remember what the president was at the time. Who the president was?
Yeah. Anyway, it was sunk.
It was sunk, and the Americans said, "Well, how dare the Germans sink a passenger ship?"
It's too far.
And they used it as a prompt to tell the American people how bad the Germans were, and we're going to go to war to join our British friends. And yeah, and it was later found when they when did they do it? They uncovered it in was it 2008.
2008.
The divers.
Oh,
The divers in
okay. Yeah.
2008 went down, but it was pretty much well known before then. But the
Yeah.
actual physical confirmation proved that there was loaded up with all these munitions.
What stands out to me about that example from a communication perspective is a passenger ship, Lusitania. That's such a simple image to keep in mind. So this is a passenger ship. This got bombed by the Germans is a very simple, clear, vivid message that is easy to sell. For the public to understand or to comprehend that, so it looks like a passenger ship, but there's actually the government is smuggling munitions in there, and then the Germans are at the port and trying to warn people not to do it because it's like already the complexity is too much for a mass audience. And I think that's actually what you see a lot in these lies is a simple, potent lie that is catchy and easy to sell can be more people go, yeah, that makes sense. And they can imagine it. This guy good, this guy bad, done. Whereas truth is nuanced and truth is layered. And there is something I remember writing a while ago during COVID, actually, which I'm sure we'll get to, about propaganda. We talked about it before, but as an analogy, truth is spectrum of colors. So it's crimson, magenta, rose, like there is a spectrum of colors within there. It's nuanced. There is different aspects of it, but it's more complex. Propaganda and lies, red. Everything is red, and red becomes a vortex that sucks everything around it in because it's very simple and easy for people to understand. So that's what stood out to me about that example is we know the Germans are bad because or the British are fighting them. They bombed this. We need to get them back. Done.
Well, you used the word propaganda there, and one of the principal architects of the propaganda mechanism using that was Bernays. Using that as a very simple thing.
Yeah, simple.
And
Simple
it's a
is
very
good.
simple, and each of these other ones, it's it's
They're
the
all very
next one is put.
simple
Well, they're very
narratives.
similar, and this next one is the same as Pearl Harbor.
Mm.
The attacks on Pearl Harbor. The Americans had been at some sort of I wouldn't say war, but attacks or disputes with Japan, but in behind it, Roosevelt was had I think he'd been elected on a non-interventionist policy. He didn't want to go to war, and I'm a peace president. And you can trust me. I'll protect the United States. We don't want to go to war, but in behind it, he was being pushed somehow to get into the war in the in Europe. So that they needed some form of a prompt to change the
Public opinion.
public opinion. The United States had broken the codes. I think it was the in the military codes, including the naval codes of the Japanese, and had known that for some time. They knew the attack was coming. They knew it. A couple of the admirals in and around that area, Pearl Harbor, not just in Pearl Harbor, but in Hawaii, advised Roosevelt and the leaders that that there was an attack going to come. He ignored the advice and did not allow any of the ships to move out. It was then the similar thing. Japan bad, us good. How dare them attack us in our own backyard, Pearl
Yeah.
Harbor. And he shut down any investigations and he blamed the admirals who was their fault.
So
There's a lot more. There's a lot more to this story, but I'm trying to just break it down into some simple parts. But
yeah,
essentially, the leaders knew it was going to happen. It was done to allow him to declare war and join the Allies because Japan was in an ally with Germany. Yeah.
and in this example, what we see is a trajectory towards not just manipulating existing circumstances, but allowing something to happen because of the potential strategic objective it can have. Many of the previous ones were like, this thing happened. How can we use this event positively? And then the trajectory is towards, oh, that actually worked. Maybe we don't have to wait for those events to happen. We can, well, like it's probably going to happen. We
Very
can
true.
take advantage of it. And I think as we go on, we'll probably see a greater sophistication of the same approach.
Absolutely. And it's this ability to manipulate people into believing something when it's not true. You know, Hiroshima, the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
They happened, right? You're not going to tell me they didn't happen.
No, it happened, but it didn't need to happen. It did not need to happen. There's a documentary called Fogs of War, and Robert McNamara.
Mm.
I think you've seen that
I
somewhere.
have, yeah.
I think,
Fog of War,
yeah,
it's called.
the Fog of War, and he's breaking down. He said we didn't need to do this. He said 70% of 70% of the big cities in Japan had already been firebombed. There was a massive firebombing campaign done by the Americans, slaughtering innocents like you wouldn't believe. The Japanese had done a peace deal with Russia. Russia acting as a broker and saying basically, tell the Yanks we're done, we're finished. And that was communicated to America, but they went ahead and did the bombing anyway. There was no need for the bombing. And the official story, we did it to save the lives of Americans because if they were going to invade Japan, we would lose so many of our military. So this is the most expedient way to save our lives and to finish the war. The war was already over. Japan had already declared that they'd lost.
Did people believe that then?
Yes.
Like, I mean, even the second one, the first one you can sell. The second one, maybe you're like, oh, like, was that necessary?
I
Yeah,
think there's a view that one of the reasons why they wanted to do well. One was there were different types of bombs. One was a hydrogen bomb, the other was an atomic bomb. I think they're a bit different. But you got to bear in mind the Americans had been working on this technology for quite a
yeah.
while.
They wanted to test it.
Deep secret. There are two reasons. One, my view is that they wanted to test it, but the other view is that they wanted to send a message to Russia,
Yeah,
saying we've got this technology. If you think, because there was towards the end of the war there was a
power struggle.
concern, yeah, that the communists were going to come out of it with a strength and wanting to do all sorts of things around the world. So the Americans would say, well, not only are we going to test it, we're going to send a message to you that we've got this technology. So don't think that you can beat us around the head. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's strategic geopolitics, and then whatever narrative needs to support it. And that picture becomes clearer and clearer when you start looking at all these things in context. And you see that it's like a common strategy and a common approach. And which is why I found that the easiest way to understand, like, especially for people who maybe haven't gone down the rabbit hole or really questioned authority that much. To be honest, I think now a lot of people are questioning it more because they see what's actually going on in the world. But when you actually view it as, hang on, we're talking about nations vying for power on a global chessboard. There's limited resources, there's power, there's deal brokering. It's like chess. And when you actually view it from that perspective and you take away empathy and compassion, and I'm not saying this is what you should do, but it helps to understand what is actually going on, where it's more like, if anyone's played Settlers of Catan, you know, all
Oh, yes, we have.
these
Yes.
board games where you're trying to get resources and positioning, and at that level, like that's what's guiding those decisions. And I'm not saying everyone's bad, but that essentially people have to protect their power and their resources, blah blah blah. And the message that they put out there is, it's like, here's the objective, and then uh how do we spin this? It's not truth all the time. It's a far more flexible view, let's just say. So what
But
happened?
unfortunately, um, millions and tens of millions of innocent civilians have been the recipient,
Yeah,
of death because of these psychopaths, and I call them psychopaths, have made these
they
decisions
are.
and then lied to the people, and we'll come to something that's currently happening, and it's that they're sacrificing so many millions of people for
Yeah.
their own ends, and that to me. And um, um, I can remember going to the cemeteries in Omaha Beach, and also in the Somme and in that area with your mum. And you're walking around, and so that's the Second World War and the First World War, and I feel sad, obviously, for the millions of lives of young men and women that have lost. But I get angry.
Mm.
I get so angry at the waste of these people, these innocents,
Yeah.
because it didn't have to be. These fucking psychopaths do it. And sorry, and no, I'm not going to apologize for swearing, because it does. There's some things that do annoy me, and yeah, walking those cemeteries really make me angry. Really make me angry, because there's stuff that I know, and I just anyway.
But that's why this is so important, is whilst, yeah, we can look at that and go through these examples and, oh, and this and that, and oh, that's interesting, we were lied to. It's like, yeah, what was the consequence of that lie?
Yes.
Like, we were lied to, and that was used to justify a war. And I mean, we'll soon find as well, Vietnam had the similar thing with the uh, Gulf of Tonkin incident from high school history. You might correct me on that, but
No. I'll touch on that one, but yes.
yeah, and the lies have consequences, and it's not just, oh, I was lied to, I feel betrayed. It's like this can cause millions of deaths and people's lives to transform fundamentally. And that's why it's important to actually be aware that then people in power aren't always don't have your best interests at heart, and not en masse, obviously, nuance, blah blah blah, but typically speaking, the further up in any structure of power you go, the more psychopaths you're going to have, because the world of power, the people who have empathy and compassion can't work in that world, because it's all about power and deals, and it's very, the people who are earnest and mean well get very disenchanted and are likely to fall out. But the people who are ruthless, you see it in business too, the people who are ruthless and can make those decisions without empathy are more likely to get further up in that power chain, and then the system
And,
supports it.
well, I think you just mentioned the system that supports it. In many regards, the leader is not he's the final decision maker, but it is all those influences around them, in particular the United States, the military industrial complex, the intelligence community,
Yeah,
the deep state, or the big donors, the Wall Street bankers, the pharmaceutical companies. the influence upon the political movement is so vast and so entrenched, and it's just not in America; it's throughout the world. And so you might say, "Oh, he's the decision maker," but the manner in which the building blocks and outside influences putting pressure for these leaders to make the decisions and the statements that they do is vast. And so you might say, "Oh, well," and I'm going to come to Ukraine. We're talking about, and it's chronological because part of this also is uh, uh, to make the viewers aware of what is going on, and don't believe what you're seeing in the newspapers. And
Well,
anyway,
let's maybe skip forward a bit because I want to make sure that we do touch on more of the contemporary things because what you said is very true, is that this isn't just a historical fact. This is stuff that's happening now, and it it's
okay,
important
so
to be aware of
uh,
it. So
uh,
maybe
uh,
let's bring us closer to where we are in the present day.
I'll skip a few, but I'll get to that. But one of the most important events, and was the JFK assassination.
Mm.
And I'm just going to very quickly go through that. I think I will do there's JFK and 9/11, and I'll come then to some recent ones. But what happened to JFK was we were lied to from day one. The Warren Commission, the media, all said no, it was a lone gunman, all of that sort of stuff. It wasn't until 1976 that there was a congressional hearing on it, and they said, "Oh well, it was more than one shooter, and it's a conspiracy." And then it's sort of like we don't know what happened, right? But the thousands of books and millions of words that have been written about it, and we know that it was a conspiracy. We know there were multiple shooters, and that Lee Harvey Oswald probably wasn't his bullet that went through. There were others, right? But what I want to say there is, and I think I will do an episode on that because it's such a defining moment in politics. Basically, um, if you stand up against us, this is what we're going to do to you. Now, I guess going to break down into four very quickly who the potential culprits were. It was the CIA because JFK wanted to get rid of the CIA, right? He was really against them. They lied to him about the Gulf of Cuba, the mafia. The mafia, Joe, his dad, went to the mafia because they were running out of money. And the mafia sort of said, "Yeah, okay, for the campaign, yeah, we'll help you out." They get in. JFK's brother, Attorney General, starts to go after them. Next is the Federal Reserve. Federal Reserve is not federal, it's not a reserve. It's a group of private bankers established in the dead of night in 1913. And
Jekyll Island.
so, of Jekyll Island, yes. And JFK said, "I want to get rid of the Federal Reserve. I want to bring back the uh, uh, get rid of the Federal Reserve note, and I want another note owned by the United States government, not that thing over there." Then the other one is Israel. Um, JFK wanted to have open up the Dimona nuclear power plant or a nuclear missile facility in Dimona in Israel. He wanted to have inspections. He didn't want them to have access to nuclear warheads, etc. Ben Gurion, the then Prime Minister, resigned. But JFK just wanted to go through that. He just wanted peace around the world.
Peace is
I'll
very
come. I just want to
peace is very
go.
dangerous.
What do you mean?
Well, peace is very dangerous for the
Oh,
people
peace.
who profit from war. When you were describing the different players involved, I couldn't help but think of Cluedo. You know, that game where it's like
Yeah.
it was the mafia in the living room with the candlestick.
Yes.
Or maybe it was Israel in the foyer with the dagger, the letter opener.
Let me just read you this, and I think I will. I know it. Yeah. This is JFK 1961. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system that has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced and not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumour is printed, and no secret is revealed. He had a lot of enemies, did JFK.
They don't do speeches like that anymore. Like, just as you look through old speeches, like, compare that to what we witnessed in the last few years in US politics. I mean, Obama at least was a good orator. Take away whatever his actions were. Speechwriters were good. But you look back at some of these speeches from the earlier days, and the language was less simple, I feel. Like, they didn't have to dumb everything down to like this ultimate fourth grade level. It felt like you can read these and there's some inspiration, there's some leadership, and obviously JFK had a very contrarian perspective to the status quo, and I love that quote as it exposes what's going on. But what struck me especially is that, yeah, you don't get speeches like that anymore, probably because for good reason. What happened.
Whatever you say about Trump, Trump is making, in his own words and own ways, similar comments about the, in inverted commas, the deep state. And that was one of the reasons why there was an assassination attempt on him. And I personally think that there may be another one. But anyway, that aside.
More the sophistication of the language that I found interesting. Like the way they talk, most speeches talk now, it's speaking to people like they're fourth graders. Like,
well, it's because of the movement. Not to say that JFK was not a celebrity, but there's the whole campaigns, even here and in most Western countries, it's about image. It's about your delivery. It's about your celebrity. It's a marketing. Are you a good marketer? Right? Can you market yourself? Right? Can we get a good photograph of you? Can you just, how do you talk? You know, Obama was great like that. He was a fantastic marketing marketer, but also all the mechanisms around him was so good. So they don't have to sort of come out with words like that and inspirational, great language. It's more of the, how can I convince people?
And that I feel is something to, like, the macro theme here is beyond just these historical authoritarian events and looking at the world we live in now, is that the skepticism's at an all-time high because there's so much nonsense. Like, we don't know what's true or not. Clickbait, AI created things, like there's everything is spun in so many different ways. There's, like, I don't feel people genuinely believe that what they see is true for the most part. I think people are a lot more skeptical now, but to the point that people are skeptical even of the truth. And you create, when you create doubt in everything, because
33% of Democratic voters believe what happened on the assassination was faked by Trump and his team. 33%. Anyway, just moving on. Have we got time? How's your time going there?
We've got about 13 minutes left.
13 minutes.
Maybe 15. So
15. Okay, so let me go current events. I will do a. I did want to show that video on 9/11, but we'll have to do that another time.
We can put it in the description if people want to see it.
Can you put it up, load that video up on the?
We can put it in the description.
Oh, can you edit it in now? Okay, right. So there's a great video that Adrian's going to put in which is, it only goes for 5 minutes, but you've got to watch it. Adrian will put that in. 9/11, one of the biggest events. We're going to do a whole podcast and whole episode on 9/11 because it was as I said, that's a paradigm shift on all sorts of things. I did want to just quickly, invasion of Iraq. That was just complete lies.
Like a
Okay.
greatest hits of being lied to. Yeah, that one was, and what we start seeing is the lies became more blatant, and people were more like, okay, so there weren't any weapons of mass destruction at
None.
all.
And
Like,
Colin Powell and others, but he was talking about hydrogen gas generators. There was aluminium tubes for nuclear, anthrax, none. Nerve gas, none. Chemical and bioweapons agents, none. Chemical warheads, none. Scud missiles, none. Mobile bioweapons labs, none. Saddam Hussein supported Osama bin Laden. No, he didn't. He hated him. All of that was used. They were all lies, provable lies. And look what happened. There was lies in Afghanistan as well, right?
and we
I
start
just,
seeing again to just bring it back to that arc, whereas before manipulating existing events for your own gain, then maybe not taking action, like letting Pearl Harbor happen. We trace that through to just blatantly lying in order to fulfill a strategic objective because there's a
well, the strategic
realization.
objective of Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Libya.
Path to Persia.
Uh, no, it was that started in 1999 by a group called the Project for New American Century,
Yeah.
who put out a paper, and in that they said, this is before 9/11. They said we need a new Pearl Harbor so that America can advance its interest and not control the world, but take its position as the preeminent nation in the world. I will discuss that further when we do the 9/11 episode. So that was the strategic reason, as a flow-on effect from 9/11, the new Pearl Harbor, to go into Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq, Libya, Syria. Ultimately, they wanted to take out Iran. Okay, moving to the current one, Ukraine. Ukraine, the current thing is Russia is going to invade. It invaded Ukraine because it wants to take over all of Ukraine and go in and take over Europe. Bullshit.
It could be Europe, yeah.
This is current. At the end of the Cold War, a promise was said to Gorbachev and to Russia is that NATO will not expand eastward towards Russia. Have a look at where NATO missiles and countries are now. It's encircling Russia. In 2014, there was a coup of the Lukashenko, I think it was, who the leader of Ukraine, who wanted to have friendly relations with Russia, and a US-funded and supported and organised coup was done by the United States to put in their friendly figureheads, leading to Zelensky. NATO, EU, UK, US funded the expansion and growth of the Ukrainian military to the extent that they were about to invade Donbass and Luhansk in the east of Ukraine, mainly Russian people. Putin in December 21 said, hey, hold back, boys. United States and Ukraine, NATO, I don't want you to do that. And by the way, Ukraine wants to join NATO. You're going to be putting nuclear missiles in there 10 minutes from Moscow. Red line. Puts forward a peace proposal in December 21. Basically, the United States tells NATO anyone to tell Putin to get fucked. Putin says, okay, the Ukrainian military is about to invade Donbass. Putin says, enough. I'm going to protect these people. That's how it all started in March 22. Erdogan, the Prime Minister of Turkey, did a peace deal with Russia and with Zelensky. Boris Johnson, at the instruction of the United States, told Zelensky to back off, no peace deal. And since then, it's just been downhill. Just lies, absolute lies. Anyway.
What it reminds me of is, putting it in a very simple, crude image. Imagine two siblings, and one is poking the other one, poking them and like hitting them and just like annoying them, like getting all up in their space. And then
Yep.
finally the other sibling goes like enough and hits them. And then they're like, Mom, look what happened. You ground them. And it's obviously oversimplified.
Yeah, but there's an overall objective by the United States is to dismantle Russia, take Putin out, to dismantle Russia. That's why they brought all these sanctions on. They wanted to break up Russia, go in and take up the resources. They don't want the United States didn't want the sovereignty of Russia. They wanted to have access to all the resources. They didn't want by doing that, they would then break down the relationship between China and a strong Russia. That was the objective. It's only made it stronger and more. The world is moving, as I said earlier, about a multipolar world. It's a fiasco. Were all created by the United States and lied. Moving on very quickly, which will be another topic, is human-caused global warming. I'll use the word, it's lies. I will go through a separate episode on that. It basically started back in the 1960s by Club of Rome. It was a means to, and they do state it, that it was a means to go down a depopulation agenda and control of the planet. In the depopulation stakes, they failed. We have got over 8 billion people in the world, but I have to go into it in more detail. But there's a reason why it all started, and there's 50 years of predictions of the world coming to an end because of climate, and none of them have come to fruition at all. None.
It's effective because you can just take weather events, and I don't know enough about it. I haven't done any research, but like you can take weather events, and again, it's ignorance, right? That's a complex subject. People don't know like all of the many factors of what affects the global, like the Earth's climate over like thousands of years, and there's different evolutions, and then it's convenient to say that, well, sure, I think we've contributed to it, not necessarily global warming, but like because it's very clear that we've kind of screwed the environment in a lot of ways, like through plastics in the ocean, and just like it's a tangible image for people to go, yeah, actually we're kind of like battery hens and all those things, that it's not much of a stretch to be like, yeah, actually it's been a lot of storms lately that like.
If you want to talk about from your perspective, from the creating of a narrative, and then getting a message out, and getting people to believe in that, and this has been going on like in a real formative and strong way since the 90s. It was the Rio Earth Summit, right? And that was when it sort of really this global warming, CO2. That evil thing really got going. So for 30 years, we've been the message has been it's been a brilliant, if you want to call it a task or a what do you want an objective fulfilled by the way in which they've done it. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. You've got kids now having I think in psychiatry, there's a thing called climate anxiety. Children have got climate anxiety.
Well, because they keep telling them that the world is going to be doomed.
Correct.
And the only way to save it is all of these things that we tell you to do. Like, and the part that just blew my head off when I was like, okay, this is insane, where they've launched carbon credit cards where your spending is tracked, and it's
Yes.
like you have an allocation of, depending on what your carbon footprint is based on your spending, then you only have a certain limit. And to me, that's like when it pops up from underneath the ocean and you see what's actually going on. Because if something like that gets implemented, that's an incredibly strict control mechanism which can be manipulated in any way that you want, to be like, oh, actually,
Oh,
yeah, you bought a stake,
absolutely.
you don't have any carbon credits left, so you can't buy anything. Sorry.
Well, yeah, well, the World Economic Forum, that nutcase Klaus Schwab is involved in this. Bill Gates, all these people, and it's about control. You know, I think they want us all to end up like China. Last line, COVID. Um, God, I've got a long list of all of that, but basically we've been lied to about COVID, everything about it.
I'm shocked. I'm absolutely shocked at that. I mean, that's probably a subject we're going to need to go into at another time, because there is so many things in there, and it's also becomes very charged, and we're at kind of a limited time frame today. But yes, to me, that's like the first, because it was so huge and it affected everyone. It wasn't just one country. Everyone was
Yes,
affected.
yes.
Everyone's day-to-day life was affected. People's health was affected. People, like, it affected everyone globally. So everyone is more aware of what actually happened. And even when it's happening, I think more than ever, as I said, like I don't know, call it the monsters coming out of the deep and showing its head above the surface.
Very true. Good analogy. Yes,
That
very good.
COVID was like, a lot of people who perhaps weren't questioning things before started going, wait, what? Because it affected them. And it's so easy normally for people to just go, whatever, Lusitania, okay, well, it's not my country getting bombed, or we're not at war. It's not affecting my day-to-day life. But when it does, people start going, hang on a sec, this just doesn't make sense. And a lot more people have opened up to skepticism after COVID, for sure.
And thankfully, and um, we should be very alert to what may happen in the future, because it's that, and you're very right by looking at that analysis that it is that those years and what took place and still is taking place is waking people up to say, really? They told us lies like masks work. Well, no, they don't. The PCR test, no, not quite right. No. Social distancing. Fauci just came out and said, oh, no, there was no science behind that. Right? No, we just made that up.
And the distance, though, we don't have time to get into it, but
We gotta go.
The distance between, like, you can tell a lie and then own up to it several years later, and things have moved on so fast that the mental focus, the cycle, there's no consequence to it. And that's a part of it, because there's no longer this, wait, what? And then let's hold it responsible. People just sort of go, yeah, they did lie to us. Hey, that whole thing was a joke. They, they manipulated us and kept us at home. Like, anyway, and I was just scroll Instagram. Like, there's not that consequence.
Well, look what happened to this country. The stupidity. People sitting on a beach and a fucking helicopter comes around and says with the loudspeaker, get off the beach. Mate, I still see people in cars by themselves wearing a mask, walking down the street with their kids, 12-year-old, 8-year-old kids with masks on. So,
yeah, I
think, anyway.
It's too deep to get in that, Dad.
Another time.
Like, do we have just like the old news broadcast used to have, when it's like, and like war, famine, and here's a fluffy panda who's just given birth. Do we have a big tones? Did you know, or a fluffy
No,
panda?
this isn't a fluffy panda.
I'm hoping we
It's
have.
actually
I'm
no,
looking.
it's not.
We don't have a chaser. It's just a bitter pill to
No,
swallow.
no. Yes, it's the word gaslighting.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking for something positive. Maybe just lighting. Lights are nice, aren't they? A nice lamp, a candle.
Haven't you used, you're aware of the use of the word
I'm
gaslighting?
I'm aware. I'm just trying to. I'm
Where
about to
does
go
it
out.
come from?
I'm about to go out to dinner with some friends. It's Friday night, and like part of me doesn't want to go in and be like, "Over lies, gun." Like, do we have a little? We probably don't. There's nothing positive. Everyone, it's done. You should. You have anxiety
I'm
just from
so,
this
I'm
process.
trying.
We're both
I've
sitting
got
here.
anxiety. Uh,
No,
well, there's more that I wanted to go through, but listen, guys, thank you so much for listening. It was a bit of a rush, but we'll work on. Sorry, the other reason I wanted to do this was there are some big topics there which we will do in a more expansive way in future episodes. And my chosen son is going to be coming back to Australia
I will.
shortly. Yeah.
I will. Not for good, but for a tour, a tour
Uh,
of
for
the
for
homestead,
the homestead. Yeah.
tour
All
of the
right,
homestead. No,
matey.
I look forward to it. So that
Okay.
a pleasure as always. Thank you everyone
Yeah, mate.
for listening, watching. Hopefully you enjoyed that. We'll be back. There'll be less time between this and the next one. I promise.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you. Okay. See you, matey. Bye.